Welcome to Actions and Limits. My name is Justin Atherton. I'm the Peak Performance Consultant for Confidence Unchained. With me as always is Paul Fortune. Paul is a mindset coach and the founder of A Call to Action. And together, we make Actions and Limits. Welcome to the show, the podcast where we talk about the actions we can take and the limits we create. Everyone, make sure, if you haven't already, to like and subscribe to the show, either on your favorite podcast platform. Follow us on YouTube so you're not missing out on a single episode. And find us on Instagram and Facebook at Actions and Limits. And stay updated on all our upcoming content and all our great interviews. I know we got another great interview coming up, Paul. I know you've been on Chris's podcast already, so I'm excited to have him out, man.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a great guy, real animated, and he likes comics and other various movies and such. Okay. So in the honor of having Chris on our show and him liking comics, is there a comic character that you resonate with? You know what? In my head, I have a character that I think that you're going to say, but I'm going to let you say it, and I'm going to see if it's the same person I'm thinking of.
Okay, I'm curious what you're going to say. I'm curious what you're going to think I resonate with. Growing up, it was Wolverine. That was my favorite. Because he was always the trash talker that didn't care what anyone else was going through. He's like, hey, I'm going to handle shit and I'm going to get it done regardless, of what anyone else is saying. It might not always be the best route, but it's like, hey, I'm definitely going to get it done, and didn't take crap from anybody. So I would say growing up, Wolverine was definitely one of my favorites in the comic book world. Now I'm bracing myself for the one that you're going to throw at me, Paul.
Well, I was thinking, I can see why you would say Wolverine, and that probably would have been my second or third choice that you would say. But I thought the first choice that you would say is the Incredible Hulk. Oh. Because he's a doctor, he's very intelligent, and then when he gets mad, he's just ripped, he's all ripped up, man. I'm going to get you.
I didn't plan on wearing green today, but, now it's a perfect fit, right? It's like, I get, you got the smart side, and then you've also got the brawn as well. But, yeah, okay. I get you on that one. I'll that's not far off as a good one. Or Batman would have been another good one too. Like, go out there and seeking justice and, getting the bad guys, probably those three would be in the top there. So, but yeah, so it'll be interesting to have Chris out. I know, like you said, you were on his podcast, Scar Bears. And so, yeah, let's go ahead and bring him out. I'm interested to pick his brain a little bit. So Chris is a survivor of necrotizing fasciitis, which is a flesh-eating bacteria. Chris speaks to students and motivates them to adopt the attitude of gratitude and achieve greatness on their own terms. Chris also coaches people one-on-one to develop meaningful goals and/or the attitude of gratitude. Chris lives in Minnesota with his fantastic wife and kids, where he teaches middle school special education for an online school. Chris enjoys running, Tae Kwon Do, pop culture, and Weird Al. So let's go ahead and bring out Chris Gordon to the show. All right, everyone, welcome Chris Gordon to the show. Chris, happy to have you on the Actions and Limits podcast, man. Thanks for joining us.
Hey guys, thank you very much for having me. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
So you've got a pretty interesting story. I know you've dealt with different things. I know Paul and I think it resonates with Paul a lot, your whole idea of the attitude of gratitude and your podcast. But just give our audience a little rundown of your story and how you got to where you're at right now.
Certainly, Justin. So previous to March 2015, I was a normal 40-year-old father of three who can run a 5K in under 19 and a half minutes, run of the mill. I've always been a runner, but I've really kicked it up since I moved to Minnesota from Michigan. And so I've been really working hard at it. And so in March 14th, 2015, I ran a Pi Day race, which is for us math nerds, 3.14 miles.
There you go.
And I ran it in 19 minutes, 29 seconds. Pretty solid time.
Yeah,
well, 4 days later, I was helping my wife, Becky, get our kids into the car for school. And I was flying my younger son down to the garage. We have a detached garage. And I was going back and forth, and I veered too far to the right and scratched the back of my right hand on the garage wall. No big deal. I've had scratches before. I got him into the van, kissed everyone goodbye, and then as soon as they went inside, as soon as they left the driveway, I went inside to wash off my wound and start my day as an online special education teacher. So no big deal. 3 days later, on a Saturday, I wake up and I have a lacrosse ball size bump on my right elbow. Noting this is not how I usually wake up, I went to the medical center walk-in clinic and was checked out by the attending doctor. He said it might be bursitis, but keep an eye on it and let them know if anything happens. Well, within the next 10 hours, the bump had started to envelop my right arm. And by the time we got the kids down to bed at 8 o'clock, my right arm was triple the size of my left. To use a comic book analogy, I was the Incredible Hulk in mid-transformation. So we quickly called a babysitter to come over to watch the sleeping kids, and Becky drove me to the emergency room. They admitted me and immediately started to worry because they could not get a blood pressure reading on me. I had gone septic. And for those who don't know, sepsis is, in general terms, an over-exaggeration of the body when there is an infection. And it sends a toxic chemical into the bloodstream to kill the infection. However, sepsis can actually kill you. Yeah. So they were very, very worried about that. So they kept me overnight. And in the morning, the attending doctor at that time told me that they could do nothing more for me. This was beyond them. And she asked me where I wanted to go. And immediately I said the Mayo Clinic, which is in Rochester, Minnesota, about 2 hours away from New Ulm, where I live. And I said Mayo for two reasons. First of all, it's the Mayo Clinic. It's hard. You're going to be hard pressed to find a better hospital, especially where I live. Secondly, my in-laws live in Rochester. And so my family is going to have some place to stay while I'm in the hospital for the certainly only 2 or 3 days this was going to take to resolve, right? I mean, Mayo Clinic's got this. So they fly me from New Ulm to Rochester, and I'm quickly admitted. And then soon after I am admitted, they diagnosed me with necrotizing fasciitis, which is also known as flesh-eating bacteria. Yeah, it's as scary as it sounds.
Yeah, that does not sound good, Chris. That's flesh-eating bacteria.
But for a comic geek like me, it's a perfect origin story starter. So
it all started in your garage too, right?
Yes, exactly. It wasn't a radioactive spider. It was an upset garage. Mad that I punched it. So what turns out is that there was strep in the area in our household, and what got into my cut was strep A, which is known as Streptococcus pyogenes. It's a group A strep. And so that created the little cocktail that basically went crazy in my arm. And at the time that I was getting prepped for surgery, it had progressed well into my shoulder and actually the base of my neck, and had also gone down past my chest, and was starting to cover my rib cage. It was also covering my back. So they put me under on Sunday afternoonish, and I was in a coma for 5 days. Jeez. And in that 5 days, they basically filleted me. They took off the skin from the back of my right hand all the way up into my shoulder to the base of my neck, down through my chest, and around my rib cage and up through my back. And the infection was so bad that they thought that during the second surgery, I would need to have my right arm amputated. But the occupational therapist who was in attendance for the second surgery saw that it still had hand function. So they elected to remove a 15-inch by 4-inch flap of skin from my left thigh and place it on my right hand and forearm. And since it's my thigh and my hand, I call this my thand. And so copyright pending.
Glad you could have a sense of humor, in that situation. That's luckily, like you said, for that, physical therapist to be there and give their opinion, so you still have your arm and your hand.
Yes.
So I'm sure that there was.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sure that was a heck of a process to recover from. What was that like for you?
It was very difficult. I am not going to sugarcoat it and say, hey, I made it through, so it was fine. But it did take a lot out of me physically, obviously. But what made my recovery so much easier was the support that I received from my family, my friends, my colleagues, even total strangers. Ranging from people dropping off toys to my in-laws' house so my kids had something to play with. They ended up staying at my in-laws for 2 weeks, the first 2 weeks of my hospitalization. And so people were bringing over toys, playing with my kids, bringing over food. One of my wife's high school friends started a GoFundMe account, and people were donating hundreds of dollars, people I didn't even know. And so when I learned that people were stepping up to help us out in that way, it filled me with such gratitude that I gave myself no choice but to be positive, because I felt that if I were to be negative or be angry, I would be disrespecting and slapping the face of everyone who stepped up to help us. And go ahead. I hear you about to say something.
Chris,
Yes,
I love the gratitude. I love the gratitude piece. You and I talked about it on your podcast a lot. Now,
yes.
Obviously, going through what you did, obviously negative thoughts go through your head. We're all human beings. It happens to the best of us. Probably thoughts of your head going, boy, if I didn't scrape my hand going back and forth, none of this were to happen. And you just go down a rabbit hole, which a lot of people do. What do you do to prevent yourself from doing that? Because thoughts come in your head, especially when this happens to you. How do you start to stop yourself and go, no, I'm not going down this road in my head?
That's a very good question, Paul. And there have been random times where I've thought, well, I wish I didn't do this. I wish I didn't do that. But last time I checked, I wasn't Doctor Strange. I didn't have a time stone in my eye of Agamotto. I couldn't, as Cher would say, turn back time. And so it's just that acceptance that, well, you know what? This is my new reality. And I'm just going to have to make the best choice I can make going forward. And I could definitely say, oh, why did I do that? It was so stupid. But what's that going to do? How is that going to help my family? What kind of dad am I going to be to my kids if I'm upset at every little mistake I made? And so I have to step up for them. I have to be a good example for them, to show them resilience and perseverance. I have to be a good role model for my students, because being a special education teacher, you work with kids who are dealing with different kinds of struggles, but the struggle is all the same. And no matter the perseverance covers, it's very broad. And you can use perseverance with any kind of disability. And so if I didn't show that in my own struggle, I would be a hypocrite. And I wouldn't be serving my family, my students, my community, if I were to say one thing and do the opposite.
So is that what really kickstarted this attitude of gratitude, realizing, because you were already a teacher for special ed, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So is that what really prompted it? It was like, look, hey, I've already teaching this. And like you said, I got to walk the walk, if I'm going to talk the talk. So it was like, almost an extra boost for you, in your recovery process. It's like, hey, I'm already teaching this. I got to be a good example for the people that I'm already, teaching, the students that you have. Is that what really developed this attitude of gratitude?
Partially. But it goes back to all those people who helped us out. But yeah, again, being a role model for my kids, my students, and other people, I knew that I was setting a precedent, because many people had never even heard of necrotizing fasciitis. I had never heard of it. And so I felt like, well, if I'm going to be a bit of a role model here, I'm going to have to model. So I have to strut down the runway of perseverance and, shake what my mama gave me,
So when did you decide to become a coach and a motivational speaker through this journey here?
That was earlier this year, Paul. I had spent, in these past 5 years, I have been working on improving myself, first recovering, but then trying to improve upon what I had before. And in that time, I have set or tied 4 all-time personal running records in the 5K, 10K, 10 mile, and half marathon. I just actually today received my recommended black belt in Tae Kwon Do.
Nice.
I had also earned another teaching license. By the way, my autism spectrum disorder teaching license. And I felt that before I could really speak to people about the attitude of gratitude and to show the positive, or show the ramifications of a positive attitude, I need something to show for it. And so right around the turn of the year here, the turn of the decade, I decided, you know what? I think I'm at a place now where I can speak with some validity about the power of the power of gratitude and the power of positive thinking through my own examples.
Yeah, I know that resonates with both of us. Paul really talks about it a lot. The whole idea of being really grateful for what you have, no matter the situation. So that's huge that you took that away from the situation, being grateful, grateful for so many things. It seems to me you're grateful you still have your arm, grateful you had some good doctors, grateful you had that support system with you to help you through those tough times in the recovery, and then even grateful for your students to help you through that process of going, hey, I need to be a good role model for them and model the behavior. So there's so many things to be grateful for during tough situations. And I know Paul and I have heard that from a lot of guests, dealing with really tough situations, coming out the other side of it with a whole different perspective, and really just being grateful for, being alive and all the little things, right?
Yeah, exactly. And, it's funny you mentioned the students. I actually had a student and his family drive 2 hours to come see me in the hospital. Rochester is about an hour and change southeast of the Twin Cities. And this student lived an hour north of the cities. Wow. So he and his family came down to see me one afternoon. And, if he were to come into my room and I would be sullen and morose, I don't know if I could ever forgive myself for that display, because here I'm telling him, come on, buddy, you got to work through this. You got to, you got to roll with the punches, and you got to figure out a way to solve this problem, where I myself am sitting in a pile of pity. So
yeah, it pushes you to be better, right? When you have people that are looking up to you, that are depending on your leadership. So that's a huge thing.
Yes. We'll speak to you of your wife. I mean, she had to have been the rock, right, in this situation, taking care of the kids while you're in a coma. I mean, there had to have been months, right, where you're not even able to watch your own kids, correct? Because you're recovering and all that good stuff, correct?
I honestly don't know, how she was able to make it through those 2-3 months that I was recovering, and two, the strength, how she continues to do it, frankly. But yeah, she was fantastic. She got the kids packed up and on the road. And actually she arrived in Rochester at the same time the plane did. And which is remarkable in itself, because that means she had to get the 3 kids, the dog, all their clothes, and on the road. And this is March. So, and I believe a snowstorm was at their tail. So she was hustling, everything to get there. And then even after those first 2 weeks, she would, on Sunday night, she would come back to New Ulm here and get all 3 kids ready to go every day. She would teach her classes every day, Monday through Thursday. And then Thursday night, she would pack up the kids, drive to Rochester, and so she can meet with my doctors to find out how did the week go, what's going on for the weekend, and so on and so forth. And she had enough sick days where she could have a sub come in on Friday. And thankfully, we have a friend who had just retired, who was really on the ball with the lesson plans and everything. And so he picked it up without skipping a beat. But yeah, my wife is fantastic. I do not deserve her in so many ways. And so, she was one of the miracles of this whole situation.
How old were your kids going through this? Your 3 kids?
They handled it pretty well. The first couple weeks, they didn't come and see me because we were afraid that I was basically hideous. But my older son, Josh, he came to see me first, and he was okay with it. I still had staples in my hand, and a big cast, but he was 6 at the time, and so we were able to talk it through, talk him through it, and just have him not be as scared. The twins were 2; they actually turned 3 while I was in the hospital. And so we waited a couple more weeks for them to come in, but when they did, they were actually fine. My son Seth was really interested in the staples in my hand, and Anna just wanted snuggles, so I could provide that. Yeah.
That support system, that's so important. And again, we've heard that from so many people that have been through, really tough times, and how did they pull through it? But that support system is a very common denominator in how people have pulled through really difficult times. What would you say is your biggest takeaway from that event and going through that process?
I think, Justin, that the biggest takeaway I have is that you have to be grateful for not only the big things in your life, but also the small things. And I'm talking about the little things that no one else notices, but you like. I'm talking like when I was in the hospital, my hospital bed was situated in a way that the sun would not shine directly into my face during the day. Now I know that sounds a bit obscure, but when you are incapacitated in a hospital bed and you basically you can't move out of there, not being blinded by a celestial being is something to be grateful for.
Sure.
My brother had bought me an iPad so I could not go stir crazy while in the hospital. And the first season of Daredevil had just been released on Netflix. And not only was it a fantastic show, but that being able to binge watch it while I was recovering was a huge deal. I had to inspire myself to get back into running. I actually bought a pair of running shoes while in the hospital. And I remember the first time I put those shoes on, it was like walking on clouds. And I just love the feel of running shoes. And if people would just look around at the things that they like, if you like something, that's positive. If you like a certain show, that's a positive thing. That's something to be grateful for.
Sure.
If you like the taste of or you like ice cold water after a run or a bike ride, that's something positive. That's something to be grateful for. And if we just look at all the positives, all the things that we like in our lives, we would find that we are much richer and we could have a much more positive outlook on things than we realize.
I like that idea. I think my favorite thing was the running shoes you bought yourself, because you're like, look, I'm going through this struggle here, but like I'm looking forward right now. I've got some goals I still want to accomplish regardless of the outcome. I'm looking to the future, knowing and working towards being better and recovering and creating those goals while you're in a tough situation, rather than sitting back and going, woe is me, I'm never going to run again, or I'm never going to be able to do this. So that was my favorite part, that you brought up, is buying yourself those running shoes and going like, hey, when I get out of here, I'm putting these babies to use, right?
Yeah, and I did. I ran the worst mile ever.
Probably was the best mile ever, actually, right?
Well, yeah, the first is the worst, but yeah, I mean, it was the one I needed to get out of the way. So yes, it was like it's a Charles Dickens mile. It was the worst mile of times. It was the best mile of times. Because I almost threw up my lungs and someone else's, after my watch beeped. But at the same time, I needed to get that first one out of the way. And as soon as I did, I was able to be more strategic with my workouts, and that really helped me recover and get back into running form.
What would you tell yourself? Now, I believe this is 5 years later, correct? That all this happened? You said 2015, yes, so 5 years later. If you could go back in time and appear at yourself while you're going through this recovery period, would there be anything that you could tell yourself to make you feel better?
I don't really think so. I think, I don't want to say that I don't know. I thought I handled it pretty well, and I don't want to sound cocky about that. But first of all, I had a fantastic support system as you guys know,
Yeah.
and secondly, I just think that making the choice to be grateful and develop that positive attitude was a huge factor in my recovery. And so maybe I would just say, keep it going, enjoy that beer you're going to have later. I don't think I told you, Paul. I actually received a daily beer prescription.
Daily beer prescription.
Daily beer prescription.
After one of my surgeries, my surgeon and his team were standing at the foot of my bed explaining how things went, and I get this cocky little smile on my face, and you know what, Doc, can I have a beer tonight? It's been a while, and he gets this wistful look on his face, and he says, yeah, I think I'll have one too. And the way he said it made me think, oh, no big deal. I'll call Bill up, who's my father-in-law, and I'll ask him to bring a beer, and one for us to share, because there's no way I was going to finish one by myself. It had been a few weeks.
Sure.
And so I call him up, and sure enough, around 8:00 that night, he comes by with a beer in 2 cups and a brown paper bag. Now, Bill was also a chaplain at the hospital. He is a retired pastor, and at that time he served as a chaplain, so people knew who he was. He says to me before we open it up, okay, Chris, I'm just gonna check on something, I'll be right back. So he goes out of the room, and in a minute later he comes back with this hangdog look on his face, and he says, I think we're in trouble. She had to go check on something. So I'm thinking, just give me the beer. I'll shotgun it myself. And better than beg for forgiveness and ask for permission. But before I do that, she comes in with a piece of paper in one hand and a beer in the other. The doctor had written me a daily beer prescription. Now, I didn't take part of it every day.
Right.
But the days I did went a lot more smoothly.
That's funny. That's good. The doctors can be lighthearted like that, and play along and have that good bedside manner, and because that goes a long way, right? The doctor playing along with that and writing that prescription, quote unquote, for you to drink a beer every day. That boosts your morale. That helps the process, and releases that cortisol, and now you're able to kind of relax a little bit and go through that process. So I like that, and I'll give doctors credit that can do stuff like that. So
yeah, and not only the doctors, but the nursing staff was phenomenal. I was there for so long that they had one of those getting to know you posters on the bathroom wall, on the bathroom door, and one of the questions was favorite movie. Well, I was going through my list. I was thinking, well, I could say any of the MCU movies. I could say Star Wars. But then I thought about it. What is one movie I could watch over and over again and never get sick of it? Blazing Saddles.
Oh, man.
So I put Blazing Saddles on that poster. Well, one Monday, the head nurse, Chris, came in and she was all excited. She said, Chris, I was thinking about you this weekend. I was at a garage sale and I saw this. She gives me a DVD copy of Blazing Saddles.
Oh, wow.
She didn't have to do that.
Sure.
I'm a checklist on her to-do list. I'm like a check mark, and I'm just a part of her job. But she thought of me in that way, and that's warmed my heart so much that is one of my prized possessions. And so that just meant so much to me that, I mean, that's another reason why I wanted to recover, is because, of all those kindnesses. So yeah, that is one of the kindest things that anyone's ever done for me.
Yeah, that's pretty great. And just the story of the staff and helping through that process, that's huge. So Chris, I know you have a podcast, Scars and Bears.
Scar Bearers. Yep.
Scar Bears. Okay, I apologize for that. So
Scars and Bears sounds awesome though.
Right? You know,
you got some bears with scars.
Scar Bears. So is that your main thing you're working on, or the one-on-one coaching? What projects are you working on right now, Chris?
Well, I mainly am looking for speaking engagements. I feel that my message as a professional speaker, could reach many people. And so that is what I want to do with my message. But when the pandemic started ramping up and we started seeing schools closing and with that, in-person live events closing down,
sure,
I felt that I needed some way still to get practice. And by starting my own podcast, not only will I get plenty of public speaking practice, but I would also allow others to share their stories.
Yeah.
And, with the coaching, that's more of an offshoot of the public speaking, because I know a lot of people struggle with reaching goals and attaining that, that positive mindset on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
So it basically, the podcast and the coaching stems from my desire to be a professional speaker.
Got it. So
Chris, I got one last question for you on my side. On your podcast, you asked me who was my favorite dinosaur. So I'm going to ask you a question. If you were having a birthday party, what would the flavor cake and ice cream be?
Oh, I am so boring when it comes to snack food. I love dark chocolate. You could give me dark chocolate anything. So, maybe throw in some peanut butter though.
So it'd be the chocolate cake, dark chocolate cake, and peanut butter ice cream. What do you got?
Chocolate peanut butter ice cream, yeah, with dark chocolate chunks in it.
Okay, cool.
And I applaud you for not asking me what my favorite dinosaur is. Good switch there. I like that.
Got to mix it up. Got to mix it up, right?
Yes.
Well, Chris, what's the best way for our audience to check out your content? Whether it's your podcast or checking out your coaching and seeing what you have available. What's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
Well, they check out the my speaking engagements. What I'll have to offer as a speaker and a coach. You can go to, as I say, chrisdtgordon.com. That's GORDON. You can also find me on YouTube under Chris DT Gordon. That's the name of my channel. On Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram as Chris DT Gordon. And as we said, Scar Bearers is on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, lots of the podcasts.
There you go.
And you will recognize it because I use the Star Wars font. So
okay.
It looks like the Star Wars A New Hope movie poster, except for it says Scar Bearers. And in the middle, it says with Chris DT Gordon.
There you go. I like that. So we'll make sure to put in your contact information, your links, so our audience can reach out to you. Chris, we like to wrap up the show with a couple questions for our guests, and with the title of our podcast, Actions and Limits, in mind. What would you say is the number one action that people can implement in their lives that can really make a difference immediately?
Justin, that's a great question. I think, like I said before, it's the thinking of all the good things in your life. If you want to make a positive change in your life, you first have to have a positive outlook. And in order to have a positive outlook, you have to find things positive in your life. And it's no more than finding things that you like, things that you enjoy. If it's having a glass of wine or a glass of beer at the end of the day, fine. If it's getting up in the morning and working out, great. But and don't look for other people's happiness.
Sure.
This is your life. You do you, as they say. So you find what makes you happy, what's positive in your life, and start building from there.
I like that. Yeah, that we hear that a lot. Do you, right? But find your passion and what really makes you happy. I like that. The other half of that is these limits that we impose on ourselves. What have you seen is one of the biggest limits that people impose on themselves that we need to remove?
I think that this need for perfection. I think, our society is inundated with visions of perfection. Everything must be just right.
Sure.
And we cripple ourselves with that, because if we can't be perfect, we won't try anything. And so what I like to say is pass on perfection and go for greatness. Because if you reach for greatness and you're consistent with your actions, you'll definitely be great. And you might be perfect once in a while. You think of a professional bowler. They're not going to get 300 every single time they step onto the lane.
Sure.
But if they practice and they're consistent, they'll get 290s, 295s often. And once in a while, they get that 300. But you have to be consistent. You have to be positive, and you have to persevere.
I like that.
So pass on perfection and go for greatness.
I like that. I like that a lot, Chris. You forget about the perfection and just, like you said, go for greatness or that excellence. And like you said, every once in a while, you may have a short version of perfection in that moment. But overall, it's unrealistic. And like you said, that's something that really society places on us sometimes, that unrealistic goal of perfection. So I like that idea of removing that. So Chris, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. And I'm sure our audience got a lot out of it. And Paul and I always get a lot out of our guests. So, I love the idea of the attitude of gratitude, and, that really sounds like that's your message. Like, just really be grateful for everything in your life and the things that you have. So again, thank you so much for being on our show, Chris.
Justin, it was a fantastic pleasure to get to know you and meet you today. So thank you. And Paul, always a pleasure to talk with you, sir. Thank you for the opportunity.
You got it, Chris. Thank you.
Definitely. You guys have a great night.
Thanks. Oh, what a great guest Chris was. That message, that attitude of gratitude, I know that's something that really resonates with you, that whole positive mindset, inserting all these positive things around you and focusing on what you're grateful for. Besides that, what do you think was your biggest takeaway from Chris's story?
Well, I think that it's important when people go through, negative stretches in their lives, whether it be medically, whether it be through divorce or a family member dying or whatever it is. It's important to put things in perspective. Yeah, we're in a bad spot. We're in a horrible situation. But what is going right in my life right now? Because there's something you can point to, and it's extremely important in the recovery period of your life, because all of us are going to go through something tragic of some sort in their life that's going to be tough, and we got to grab upon the things that build us up, that positive, that gratitude. So Chris definitely did it with that flesh-eating disease that he had to go through, and a great support system right there. The gratitude of gratitude on that. A great support system right there, good doctors, great nurses. So there was something for him to be grateful for just by that.
Yeah. I really liked the idea of how, realizing that when you are a mentor, when you are a teacher, knowing that you have to step up your game, even when you're going through like hard shit. It's like, hey, I can't let this student of mine that drove 3 hours to see me, that I've been helping through their process, special education and whatever they were dealing with. I can't let them see me down and out, woe is me, saying I can't do this. He realized he had to step up his game and be like, no, I got to shake this off. I've got to be the role model. I've got to model that behavior, being that leader, being that teacher. And, when you're in a leadership role, it really does take you to another level, realizing that, the people around you are looking up to you, whatever that is, whether it doesn't have to be technically a management role. It could be your coworkers. It could be your family, your friends. Leadership is everywhere. And if you step into that, it can help you up your game. So I really liked that he saw that, and he's like, hey, look, I got to be this extra role model, even though I'm going through this horrible thing right now, and push through this to set a really good example for my students. That was my favorite part. And then the shoes, buying the shoes for himself for that goal that he's got. He's like, when I get out of here, I'm going to run that mile, even though it was horrible. I think those were my favorite takeaways from Chris's story. So.
Yeah, the shoe's very special. I think that's, setting that goal of getting out of the hospital and running that first mile. So yeah. I'm with you on that. Great story. Great man.
Yeah. So let's wrap up the show with another segment of Ask Paul Anything. I found it was very appropriate question that I sifted out of the emails, and this comes from Seth in Calgary. I believe that's Canada. And it says,
wow, look at us, we're international.
Right, international. It says, Paul, what do you feel most grateful for in your life?
What do I'm going to tell you, it's a great support system. And the reason why I say that is, going through this transition from my other career to getting into coaching full time, getting clients and that matter. And I've gotten nothing but support from my closest friends and family on it. And I'm so grateful that they have been so supportive of me in this new transition that I've been going through. And it's meant the world to me. So I would say my support system.
That's awesome. And like Chris shared, that's how huge is that to have that support system. And I think back to, a lot of the guests we've had over the last year talking about that support system that they had, their family, their spouse, their kids, their coworkers, mentors, helping them through that process. And that's so important to have that, and to realize that you need to protect your support system, at all costs. And sometimes you have to protect your support system from yourself, and make sure that you're, nurturing those relationships and really taking care of that. But that's great, Paul. And yes, I know firsthand you do have a really great support system around you. So it's
and you're one of them.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's definitely something to be grateful for, and for everyone out there, make sure that you continue to be grateful for your support system and tell them so. So again, continue to submit your questions to the Actions and Limits podcast. It's at actionsandlimits@gmail.com, and you can have your questions featured on the show. Paul, another great guest. We're starting off this year great. Season 2 of the Actions and Limits podcast, kicking off really great. So, everyone stay tuned for some more amazing interviews, coming up, guys.
For Justin Atherton, this is Paul Fortune. We'll see you next week.
All right. See you next Monday. Thank you for listening to the show. Don't miss an episode. Click and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Follow us on your favorite podcast platform and find us on Instagram and Facebook under Actions and Limits to stay updated on all our upcoming content. Continue to email the show at actionsandlimits@gmail.com for our segment Ask Paul Anything. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.